Who Moved My Cheese? An Amazing Way to Deal with Change in Your Work and in Your Life, by Spencer Johnson, MD. Introduction. Imagine for a moment, you're at the peak of your career. You're a respected broadcaster for a major television network, a true professional. You've worked hard, you've proven yourself, and you've just done a fantastic job covering the track and field events at the Olympic Games, the premier events, the ones everyone watches. You're feeling proud, secure. Then, your boss calls you into his office. He tells you that for the next Olympics, you're being taken off track and field. You've been reassigned to swimming and diving. This is exactly what happened to a man named Charlie Jones, a broadcaster for NBC TV. He was stunned. He didn't know these new sports nearly as well. He felt demoted, unappreciated, and deeply frustrated. He got angry. He felt it was unfair, and that anger started to poison everything he did. His whole world felt like it had been turned upside down. He was stuck. And then, someone told him a funny little story. A story about two mice and two little people living in a maze, looking for cheese. That simple story, he would later say, saved his career. It changed his entire attitude in an instant. He realized his boss hadn't been trying to punish him. His boss had just moved his cheese. That little story is called Who Moved My Cheese? By Drive. Spencer Johnson. And while it may seem like a children's tale on the surface, this book has become one of the most successful business parables of all time. It's a slim volume, a quick read, but its message is so powerful that it has been credited with saving not just careers, but marriages and even lives. Drive. Johnson, who also co-authored the legendary book, The 1-Minute Manager, understood something profound about us humans. He knew that we often overcomplicate things, especially when it comes to change. He knew that our powerful emotions and complex beliefs can sometimes trap us, preventing us from seeing the simple truth right in front of us. So today, we're going to walk through that maze together. We're going to explore this simple, brilliant story. And I promise you, by the end of our time together, you'll have a new way of looking at the inevitable changes in your own life. Whether it's a change at school, in your friendships, in your family, or in the world at large, you'll have a mental map to navigate it. You'll learn not just how to cope with change, but how to see it as an adventure, and how to find new and better things on the other side. Because life is a maze, and the cheese is always moving. The only question is, are we ready to move with it? Book summary. Let's begin our story in a land far away, in a place that might feel very familiar to you. It's a giant maze, a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, full of twists, turns, blind alleys, and dark corners. But within this maze, for those who can find their way, there is also something wonderful. There is cheese. Now, this isn't just any cheese. In this story, cheese is a metaphor. It represents whatever it is you want out of life. It could be good grades, getting into your dream college, a great relationship with your family, landing a spot on the varsity team, or simply a feeling of peace and happiness. Each of us has our own idea of what cheese is, and we pursue it because we believe it will make us happy. And the maze? The maze is simply where you look for your cheese. It could be the hallways of your high school, the community you live in, or the career path you choose to follow. Living in this maze are 4 little characters. 2 of them are mice. Their names are Sniff and Scurry. They have simple rodent brains, but they also have incredible instincts. Sniff, with his big nose, is brilliant at sniffing out the general direction of cheese. And Scurry is a mouse of action. Once a path is set, he scurries ahead without hesitation. The other 2 characters are a bit more like you and me. They're little people, beings as small as mice, but who look and act a lot like humans. Their names are Hem and Haw. Because they have complex human brains, filled with beliefs and emotions, they have a much more sophisticated way of looking for cheese. They search for cheese with a capital C, the kind they believe will bring them lasting success and security. Now, as different as these four are, they all share one thing in common. Every single morning, they put on their jogging suits and running shoes, and they race out into the maze to find their favorite cheese. The mice, Sniff and Scurry, use a simple but effective method: trial and error. They run down a corridor, and if it's empty, they turn around and run down another. They remember the dead ends and quickly move on to new areas. They get lost sometimes, they bump into walls, but they keep moving. Ham and Haw, the little people, use their ability to think and learn from past experiences. But sometimes, their powerful human emotions, like fear, comfort, and entitlement, cloud their judgment, making life in the maze far more complicated than it needs to be. For a long time, all four of them searched. And then, one glorious day, they all found exactly what they were looking for at the end of a corridor in a place called Cheese Station C. It was a massive stockpile of cheese, more than they had ever seen. Every morning after that, they all headed straight for Cheese Station C. But soon, their routines began to change. Sniff and Scurry, the mice, continued to wake up early every day. They would race to the station, and before settling in to eat, they would inspect the area, sniffing around to see if anything had changed from the day before. They kept their running shoes tied together and hung them around their necks, just in case they needed them in a hurry. They were enjoying the cheese, but they never let their guard down. Ham and Haw, on the other hand, started to get comfortable. Very comfortable. They began waking up a little later each day. They'd dress a little slower and stroll to Cheese Station C. After all, they knew where the cheese was now. They just assumed it would always be there. When they arrived, they'd hang up their jogging suits, put away their running shoes, and slip into comfortable slippers. They had found the cheese, and now they felt secure. Hem announced, "There's enough cheese here to last us forever." They started to see the cheese not as a discovery, but as their property. Their cheese. They even moved their homes closer and decorated the walls of Cheese Station C with sayings like, "Having cheese makes you happy." They had become so comfortable, so confident in their success, that their confidence grew into arrogance. They stopped paying attention. And then, one morning, it happened. Sniff and Scurry arrived at Cheese Station C and discovered there was no cheese. They weren't surprised. Because they had been paying attention, they had noticed the supply of cheese getting smaller every day. They were prepared for this. They didn't overanalyze or waste time complaining. For the mice, the problem and the answer were both simple. The situation had changed. So, they decided to change. They took the running shoes from around their necks, put them on, and immediately headed back out into the maze in search of new cheese. Later that same day, Ham and Haw arrived. They hadn't been paying attention to the small, gradual changes, so they were completely unprepared for what they found. "What? No cheese?" Ham yelled. He started hollering, as if shouting loud enough would make it reappear. "Who moved my cheese? It's not fair." Haw just stood there, frozen in disbelief. He had counted on this cheese. He was just not ready for this. The little people's behavior wasn't very productive, but it was understandable. Finding cheese had meant more to them than just having food to eat. It represented their security, their happiness, their future. For Haw, cheese meant feeling safe and having a cozy home. For Ham, it meant being a big cheese, in charge of others. Because it was so important to them, they couldn't just move on. All they could think to do was to keep searching around the now empty Cheese Station C, hoping the cheese was just hidden. While Sniff and Scurry were already well on their way, Ham and Haw just stayed there, hemming and hawing. They went home that night hungry and discouraged. Before they left, Haw wrote on the wall, "The more important your cheese is to you, the more you want to hold on to it." The next day, they returned, still expecting to find their cheese. But the station was still empty. They were immobilized. Haw just wanted to block everything out. He hadn't noticed the supply was getting smaller. To him, it felt like it had vanished overnight. Hem, on the other hand, let his complicated brain take over. "Why did they do this to me?" he demanded. "What's really going on here?" Finally, Haw looked around and asked a simple question. "By the way, where are Sniff and Scurry?" Hem scoffed. "What would they know? They're just simple mice. We're little people. We're smarter. We should be able to figure this out." Haw replied, "I know we're smarter, but we don't seem to be acting smarter at the moment. Things are changing, Hem. Maybe we need to change and do things differently." "Why should we change?" Hem argued. "We're special. This sort of thing shouldn't happen to us. We're entitled to our cheese." This went on for days. While Hem and Haw were stuck analyzing and complaining, Sniff and Scurry were deep in the maze, searching. It wasn't easy, but they kept moving. And eventually, they turned a corner into a part of the maze they'd never been before, and found it, Cheese Station N. It was the biggest store of cheese they had ever seen. A huge supply of new cheese. Meanwhile, back at the empty Station C, Hem and Haw were growing weaker. They were frustrated and angry, blaming each other. Haw started to think about his mice friends. He imagined them finding new cheese and enjoying it. The more clearly he pictured this, the more he saw himself leaving the empty station and going on an adventure. Suddenly, he exclaimed, "Let's go." "No," Hem responded immediately. "I like it here. It's comfortable. It's what I know. Besides, it's dangerous out there." Hem was afraid of getting lost, of making a fool of himself. And with that, Haw's fear returned, and his hope faded. So they stayed. They went to the empty station every day and returned home with their worries and frustrations. They started having trouble sleeping. Their homes didn't feel nurturing anymore. They even brought tools and knocked a hole in the wall, thinking the cheese was hidden. All they got was a large hole. Haw was beginning to realize the difference between activity and productivity. They were working hard, but they weren't getting anywhere. Finally, one day, something shifted in Haw. He just started laughing at himself. "Look at us," he chuckled. "We keep doing the same thing over and over again and wonder why things don't get better." He saw the absurdity, the folly in what they were doing. He realized his fear was trapping him. He asked Hem, "Where did we put our running shoes?" As Haw started getting into his running gear, Hem pleaded with him. "Why don't you just wait here with me until they put the cheese back?" "Because," Haw said, "you just don't get it. They're never going to put yesterday's cheese back. It's time to find new cheese." Haw felt the fear creeping back in. What if there was no cheese out there? What if he couldn't find it? But then he asked himself a critical question. Where am I more likely to find cheese? Here or in the maze? He painted a picture in his mind. He saw himself venturing into the maze, not with fear, but with a smile on his face. He saw himself finding and enjoying delicious new cheeses. That image made him feel good. He felt his courage return. As he prepared to leave, Haw picked up a rock and wrote a message on the wall for Hem, hoping it would help him think. It read, "If you do not change, you can become extinct." Then, he peered into the dark, unknown corridors of the maze. He was terrified. But he also wondered, why didn't I get up and move with the cheese sooner? As he started to walk away, he felt the pull of the familiar, the comfort of the old station, even though it held nothing for him. He paused and wrote another question on the wall, this one for himself. What would you do if you weren't afraid? He thought about it. He knew that some fear is good, it can prompt you into action to avoid danger. But the kind of fear he was feeling, the kind that keeps you from doing anything, is not good. He took a deep breath, turned into a part of the maze he'd never been, and started to jog, slowly, into the unknown. The journey was difficult at first. He was weak from having no cheese for so long. He got lost. His progress felt like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But he had to admit, being back in the maze, hunting for cheese, wasn't nearly as bad as he had feared. He was taking control, rather than just waiting for things to happen to him. He reminded himself, if Sniff and Scurry could move on, so could he. As he journeyed, he began to have a realization. The cheese back at Station C hadn't just disappeared overnight. The supply had been getting smaller. The quality had been declining. It didn't taste as good. He just hadn't been paying attention. The change probably wouldn't have surprised him if he had been watching all along. So he stopped, and he wrote on the wall, "Smell the cheese often so you know when it is getting old." He kept going, but found only empty cheese stations. He felt like giving up. He was tired and afraid of being alone. He thought about turning back. But then he asked himself that question again. What would I do if I weren't afraid? He realized that his fears were making everything worse. So he did what he would do if he wasn't afraid. He moved in a new direction. He wrote on the wall, "When you move beyond your fear, you feel free." And as he ran, something amazing happened. He started to enjoy himself. He didn't have any cheese, and he didn't know where he was going, but he felt good. He was letting go and trusting what lay ahead. Moving in a new direction had freed him from his fear. He started painting that picture in his mind again, seeing himself surrounded by all his favorite cheeses. The more clearly he saw this image, the more real and believable it became. He wrote, "Imagining myself enjoying new cheese even before I find it, leads me to it." He started thinking about what he could gain, instead of what he was losing. He realized that change could lead to something better. Before long, he spotted a cheese station and saw a few little pieces of new cheese near the entrance. He tried them. They were delicious. He regained some strength. The station itself was empty, but he realized that if he had moved sooner, he would have found a great deal of cheese here. This taught him another lesson, and he stopped to write, "The quicker you let go of old cheese, the sooner you find new cheese." He even went all the way back to Station C to offer some of the new cheese to Hem. But Hem refused it. "I don't think I would like new cheese," he said. "I want my own cheese back." Haw shook his head sadly and went back out on his own. He realized that what made him happy wasn't just having cheese. He was happy when he wasn't being run by his fear. He was enjoying the process. He now knew it was just a matter of time. He paused to write again, "It is safer to search in the maze than remain in a cheeseless situation." His old thinking had been clouded by fear. He used to think about what could go wrong. Now he was focused on what could go right. He used to think change was wrong. Now he realized change was natural. And when he realized his beliefs had changed, he wrote, "Old beliefs do not lead you to new cheese." He knew that when you change what you believe, you change what you do. Haw continued on through the maze with greater strength and speed. And then, it happened. He rounded a corner in a new corridor, and there it was. Cheese Station N. It was piled high everywhere with the greatest supply of cheese he had ever seen. Some kinds were brand new to him. And then he saw his old friends, Sniff and Scurry, their fat little bellies showing they had been there for quite some time. They welcomed him. Haw jumped into the new cheese and ate his fill. He lifted a piece and made a toast. Hooray for change! As he enjoyed his reward, he reflected on what he had learned. He realized that the fastest way to change is to laugh at your own folly. You can then let go and quickly move on. He had learned from the mice to keep things simple. When the situation changed, they changed and moved with the cheese. But he had also used his human brain to his advantage, to envision a better future and to learn from his past mistakes. He knew that the biggest inhibitor to change lies within yourself, and that nothing gets better until you change. He thought about his friend Hem. He wondered if Hem had ever read the writing on the wall. Had he ever decided to move on, or was he still hemmed in by his fear? Haw thought about going back for him, but he realized he had already tried. Hem had to find his own way. No one else could do it for him. He had to see for himself the advantage of changing. Ha knew he had left a trail. If Hem could just read the handwriting on the wall, he could find his way. On the largest wall of Cheese Station N, Ha wrote a summary of everything he had learned. Change happens, they keep moving the cheese. Anticipate change, get ready for the cheese to move. Monitor change, smell the cheese often so you know when it is getting old. Adapt to change quickly. The quicker you let go of old cheese, the sooner you can enjoy new cheese. Change, move with the cheese. Enjoy change, savor the adventure and enjoy the taste of new cheese. Be ready to change quickly and enjoy it again and again. Ah knew he couldn't get too comfortable this time. So each day, he inspected the new station, and he often went out exploring in the maze, just to stay in touch with what was happening around him. He knew it was safer to be aware of his real choices than to isolate himself in a comfort zone. Then, one day, he heard a sound. The sound of movement out in the maze. It grew louder. Someone was coming. Could it be? Was Hem about to turn the corner? Ah said a little prayer, hoping that, at last, his friend was finally able to move with the cheese and enjoy it. Commentary. So, who were you in that story? When you first hear it, it's tempting to just see yourself as the hero. Ha! But the genius of this little parable is that all four characters represent parts of us. We all have a bit of each of them inside. There are times when we need to be like Sniff, to use our intuition and notice the small changes happening around us, to see the writing on the wall before it becomes a crisis. In your world, that might mean noticing that the skills required for a certain career are changing, or that the dynamics in a friendship are starting to shift. There are times when we need to be like Scurry, to stop overthinking and just get into action. To scurry. Sometimes, the best way to deal with change is to just start moving, even if you don't have a perfect plan. And, if we're being honest with ourselves, we have all been Hem. We have all been in a situation where we felt comfortable, safe, and entitled to our cheese. And when it was moved, we got angry, we felt it was unfair, and we resisted change because we were afraid of the unknown. We wanted to stay in familiar territory, even when that territory no longer served us. But the real journey, the one that leads to growth and new opportunities, is the journey of Haw. Haw felt the same fear and anger as Hem. He was just as comfortable. The difference is that he eventually learned to laugh at himself. He saw how his own fear was keeping him trapped. And in that moment of self-awareness, he found the freedom to change. What this story teaches us is that change isn't the enemy. Fear is. Realize that the fear you let build up in your mind is almost always worse than the situation that actually exists. He was terrified of the maze, but once he was out there, he found it wasn't as bad as he imagined. In fact, it was an adventure. The core message of this book is deceptively simple. Change is inevitable. The world will not stand still for us. Our cheese will always be moving. Whether it's technology changing the job market, a relationship ending, or a family moving to a new city, we cannot stop change from happening. The only thing we have control over is how we respond. We can be like Ham and stay in an empty station, growing weaker and more bitter, or we can be like Haw, strap on our running shoes, and go on an adventure to find new cheese. So, how can you apply this right now? Here are a few simple actions to get you started. First, identify your cheese and your maze. Take a moment to think about what cheese means to you right now. Is it your academic success? Your social life? Your spot on a team? And what is the maze you're navigating to find it? Understanding what you're pursuing and where you're pursuing it gives you clarity. Second, start practicing how to smell the cheese. Look at the important areas of your life and ask yourself, what small changes are happening? Are you ignoring anything because you'd rather not deal with it? The earlier you notice the winds of change, the easier it is to adjust your sails. And finally, the most powerful tool of all, ask Haw's question. The next time you feel stuck, anxious, or afraid of making a change, big or small, just pause and ask yourself, what would I do if I weren't afraid? That question has the power to cut through all the noise and show you the path forward. It gives you permission to be brave. The beautiful lesson of Who Moved My Cheese isn't that you have to love every change that comes your way. It's that you can learn to enjoy the adventure of life, the process of moving and adapting and growing. Your success and happiness don't come from finding a permanent supply of cheese, but from developing the confidence that you'll be able to find it again and again, no matter how many times it moves. That was the book summary of Who Moved My Cheese? By Spencer Johnson. We've journeyed through the main story today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only take you so far. The real magic happens when you hold the book in your hands. It's in those quiet moments, when a simple phrase written on the wall of the maze hits you in a way you didn't expect. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time. If anything we've talked about today has sparked something in you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just learning, it's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see your life's maze. Also, if you found this summary valuable, I'd be grateful if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep moving with the cheese, and let's keep growing together.